So my name is Justine, as Deb's explained, and I'd like to share with you, to introduce myself, some of the roles that I play. I'm a mother, as Deb said, to 4 children, and I'm a carer as well. So Brody, my oldest son, has a disability, but my 2 youngest sons also are diagnosed with autism. I'm a wife, I'm a group member, various groups. I'm a meditator, and one of my newest roles is as an art creator, which is very beginning. And this is my son Brody. He's 23 years old, and some of the roles that he inhabits at the moment, he's a student, he's a brother, a son, a friend, he's a circle member, he's a musician and a music fan, die-hard, absolutely. He's an employee at Amy Park Stadium. He's a Reiki volunteer. He's an avid movie watcher. He's a commuter, and he's also an international traveller. And what I'd like to share with you today is how we really got going with creating a better life for Brody. And when I refer to we, I'm referring to Brody and myself and our team, and that's comprised of our circle, friends, family, our support staff, and mentors as well. So it's a group effort. I'd like to share with you some of the changes in attitude that have been required and what actions we've taken, what progress and role development that we've made to date, some of what I've learned and we've learnt as a group, and a little of what we're currently undertaking. I'd like to begin at a point in our journey that isn't really at the beginning. But it was really pivotal to shifting gears in valued role development in Brody's life. So like all good pivotal moments, it had a catalyst, and this catalyst was attending Michael Kendrick's workshop on leadership. And he started talking about leadership existing in niches and in specific areas. I certainly didn't see myself as a leader in any way. And he talked about leadership opportunities coming upon us because there's a need in front of us, and that we're the person there with the potential to fill it. It didn't mean, or it doesn't mean, that we're necessarily wanting to fill it or that we even feel capable. Yet we're the one there, and in effect, we're the one being asked to step up. He then challenged us to get off the fence. And I remember this having a profound impact on me because I realised that this is what I'd actually been doing. I'd attended workshops and conferences, a family retreat. I was part of a family governed mentor group, which I'm still part of, Living Distinctive Lives. I'd recently set up a circle, and all of these they weren't wasting time, but I was still procrastinating. Brody was still in a day service 5 days a week, and I was frustrated with myself. I realised that I was expecting the day services to do the work for us. I was still looking around for the expert to take the lead. I hadn't really realised that I was in the driver's seat. It was my job. And I also realised that it was not the day service provider's job. It was not their function. And despite the promises that they'd made or were making, and that's not to criticise the day service or judge them. They were providing exactly what they've been set up to do within their model framework. It's just that we weren't going to get to destination A, which was a fully inclusive and meaningful life steeped in Brody's vision and passions, while we were on the train to destination C, which is congregated care with multiple choice activity options. It wasn't going to happen. I also realised that with Brody in a care setting 5 days a week, If he'd actually been offered a job tomorrow, he didn't have the time or space to take that up, that opportunity. So I went home that night and crafted an email and gave notice the next day to the care provider. We very quickly went from 5 days a week in service to 1 day. And this resulted in lots of downtime, which was my fear. What would I do? What I actually noticed was that Brodie exhibited no personal direction of how to fill his time. He still was looking to me. What are we going to do today, Mum? And I'll be, well, I know what I'm doing. What do you want to do? Or what is it that you need to do today? I realised this was a type of institutionalisation. He'd been going somewhere that said, well, today's Monday, on Monday we do this, and we do this. I'm happy to say that he doesn't do this anymore. He has no problem filling in downtime at all. He actually craves it. He relishes it now. He's looking forward to holidays next week. He had one small role in a cafe, and it was very small, just unpaid work experience, one afternoon a week in a local, very small cafe. But they were getting him on the machine and the coffee machine and giving him a go, doing all sorts of things. But that role was coming to an end. And because it was his only role, I was not happy. I was panicking about that coming to an end. The cafe role had given him an interest. He realised he liked coffee and making coffee and that barista role. And he'd gained some confidence in being a cafe customer. He didn't know anything about lattes or mochas or, long blacks or any of that, but he learnt that. And the cafe lingo. So he gained a confidence in being able to go to a local cafe, order himself a mocha, which is his favourite, and sit down and read the paper, which is really typical behaviour if you've got a day off, Around this time, I employed our own support worker. Initially, this was to develop roles around the coffee interest, and this person had over 10 years' experience working as a barista and had recently changed into a disability support work. He was also following up circle ideas and other community and recreation roles. And this went on into employment roles as well. And just as an aside, we met at an SRV event. We were in one of the little breakout groups and I felt a connection, and so I took a plunge and asked him if he'd be interested in working with us. So after a time, Brodie was offered 1 day a week paid work as a lawn and garden maintenance worker. This was his first real job. It was a local dad at school, but this is his boss, Andy. So it was a local dad at our primary school where Brodie's siblings go, and it required me to take the plunge and ask. That was very scary. But Andy was delighted that I'd asked him. It solved an issue for him. He wanted to find someone. And we were absolutely elated. Brodie was over the moon. But I was also nervous and really unsure about where to go. Andy just assumed that Brodie would learn on the job and that he would learn about how to best teach Brodie and support him as well. They'd just work it out. And this photo is actually taken, he's just about to get in the ute to drive off for his very first day. And you can't see, but I'll just explain. As I've walked off down the road, I had tears in my eyes. It was just a very moving moment. Andy was looking for an employee that had enthusiasm, that was positive to be around, was going to be polite to customers, and someone who really wanted to work. He'd had a couple of duds. And Brodie had this in spades. At Brodie's end, he loved machinery and tools, and he had an association that being a man meant working hard. And I just want to point out to you here too, just the fluoro gear. Okay, so this is a really widely kind of acknowledged uniform for labourers. When we see someone in this, we know they're going to work or they're coming home from work. And I noticed that, when we went to the big workwear shop to fit him out for work boots and his fluoro gear, just in his interaction with the staff, the young guy who helped us, he had a change in his demeanour. I'm going to my job, I'm starting my job, this is my gear for my job. And I realised he was proud of himself. To be able to say, you work, it's a really big deal. This role actually recently ended in mutual agreement. It just naturally came to its finish. It wasn't without challenges and plenty of mishaps. I think a mower nearly went on the road, things like that happened. But what it did give Brodie was a foothold in employment. To have currently working on your CV and a current reference, is very powerful. And it directly led to his next employment role. It gave him self-confidence and self-esteem, and some resilience to hear feedback. Above all, it gave him work readiness, and this was something that he was told he was far from less than 6 months before this photo was taken. I ask you, how does someone get ready for work without life experience, without real lived experience? How did you get ready? How did you get work ready? Brodie refined through this role. He refined what he liked. He liked a friendly boss, and what he did not like. He didn't like working in the heat, getting hot and sweaty. He discovered some natural strengths. He's quite mechanically minded. And some weaknesses. Following patterning sequences is probably never going to be Brodie's a natural talent. And I personally have learnt that there's great value in letting go when roles are naturally coming to an end. And to finish up cleanly and leave the door open. And also to really make your appreciation known to the people that have made such a contribution into your young person's life. It's really important to care and nurture the relationships. They're really key. And I've learnt that roles springboard to other roles if you hold an open and creative mind. And in this case, Brodie's boss was genuinely excited by the vision and even the greater vision of what we were doing. And he really enjoyed being a mentor. And so a possible future role for him may be circle member. That's what I'm just in the process of going to ask him if he would like to do that. Meanwhile, a second employment role had opened up for Brodie. And this is working in hospitality at Amy Park Stadium in the catering department. I don't know if you can see his expression there, but this photo is taken just after his interview. He's just walked out. This role involves keeping stock filled in one of the food outlets during events. So he stocks up the fridge, he moves the hot chips, from the kitchen to the bain marie, puts them in the boxes, things like that. He's, as part of a team, he helps do the clean-up afterwards. And on his last shift, they gave him a go on the cash register, which was quite a big step up. We knew that Brodie loved working and being with people. We knew he had an interest in hospitality and live music. And although mostly sport at Amy Park, Brodie did get to listen to the last Bruce Springsteen concert for free, which I think was an opportunity completely lost on a diehard Doof Doof fan. That was just... but I was impressed. And I think my sister-in-law paid $200 for a ticket or something. Some of the benefits that I've learnt that one of the benefits in dealing with an ordinary mainstream employer and mainstream settings is that they've assumed that he's capable rather than assuming that he has to have support. And there's real power in this, amazing power. And without doubt, this has happened quite a few times, Brodie's really stepped up with that positive belief behind him. positive belief that he is fully able, he's fully capable. And while it has to be balanced with a realistic view about support, and support is required in different ways and has been, what it's meant is that assuming capable has reduced the risk of over-support, which can be a real impediment to the natural support relationships we've found. For example, Amy Park Stadium, their OH&S policy didn't know what to do with a paid support person, someone we paid, going in and working alongside him in an outlet. So their solution was to employ our support worker, which was very novel. But they also presumed that Brodie would stand on his own 2 feet within a relatively short time, which he did. So I think after 3 shifts, that support worker was no longer working with him directly on, and he now completes his role with just natural supports, his manager on the outlet and the co-workers. The role is casual, which is not ideal, but it's really typical for a young person. Brodie's responsible for responding to shift requests via text, something he's still, getting a grip on. But that has a natural consequence of missing out on a shift, no money. Better learn how to get organised. He catches public transport to Richmond and gets to Amy Park by himself. I mentioned that he undertakes the shift with natural supports, and then he takes public transport home, and I pick him up from the station. His shifts are typically starting around 6:30 and finishing at 9:30, so he's catching public transport home at 10 at night, and this was not something I was comfortable with at all. But what I've discovered is that when making decisions such as this, looking to what's typical for, in this case, a man of 23 years, and they catch public transport home. In fact, Amy Park encourages their staff to take public transport there and home because it gets so congested. They don't want a whole lot of extra cars coming in and out. And then we support Brodie to achieve that typical outcome. It works best. It hasn't been without, that particular bit hasn't been without incident. I think one night I was sitting at Holmes Glen and he'd taken the train to Ringwood. But, he had to learn about getting in a taxi, getting home again, so having enough money. So these are natural consequences, and there was, I guess, a certain risk, but the learning opportunity was so rich too. There are plenty of areas for role development, and some things that we're looking at currently are, a permanent role. Is there a permanent role there? Or other catering departments, such as at the MCG or other places. And pursuing a bit more to do with the coffee interest. Something else that I've learnt is there's valuable and flexible thinking and challenging assumptions. For an example of this is that we assumed that a slow-paced environment would be the best for him, that he'd get panicky with, all of the rush. But the person with the barista experience that we hired pointed out that faster paced meant more singular, refined roles. And these are easier to master. Multitasking roles can be too complex. So you've got to be able to undertake all of these different things rather than this one little area. Well-defined roles with clear expectations are easier to undertake and be successful. And this is the same for all of us. And what I've found with this is also very useful when you're creating job descriptions for support workers or asking for something from someone. Be really clear and specific, from potential employers, circle members, anyone. You're more likely to get a commitment and follow through. I've also found that there's a natural cycle of activity to this work, and that also includes rest and recovery, reflection and redefining the vision, both my own in terms of my relationship to this work and for Brodie to revisit his vision. This leads to new goals and renewed energy and vitality. It's easy to burn out, and self-care and surrounding yourself with positive mentors is just of the utmost importance to help keep you encouraged. And attending events like this, I found them very pivotal to keeping my inspiration levels and motivation up. Finally, Brodie's other current major role is full-time student at TAFE, and he's studying electronic music production, following his passion and dream to be a DJ. So here he is here, he's having and studying. Again, I've had to allow my assumptions to be challenged, and we've looked to what's typical and been guided by the mainstream setting. So in this case, Brodie has no support in class. It's a very small class. I think it's about 4 other students. And this means that the study support looks like tutoring before or after class, either on campus, in collaborative spaces, or off campus in places like the local library. Far more typical than having a support person right beside you in class. Something else that I've found useful when facing what appears to be opposition or resistance to the vision is there's value and a great need, I think, in stepping back and trying to be objective. In one case for us, I just asked someone else to deal with the situation, and then they found them obstructive as well. So I decided that a better use of our energy and time is just to go around them. I sought out a colleague of theirs that was easier to deal with, went that way. I think it's best to just let Brodie's experience speak for itself, and that's going to be more effective in changing mindsets than going to battle. In creating roles, we've also kept in mind Brodie's need for relationships. People to share his passions and just hang out with, to be mates. Here's a photo of Brodie in the cafeteria at TAFE, with having interactions with some friends and classmates, I think they are. This is one of the reasons that we chose for him to be a full-time student. We received some opposition about that. We were recommended he needed to be part-time and start at a lower level, but that wasn't going to be following his dreams or going to meet his goals. It was off course. We also keep this in mind when structuring support. For example, allowing time when classmates come out and naturally socialise. And we're still tweaking this. An example is that I came up with is playing laser tag with a classmate after class. Is that an opportunity for bonding, or is he avoiding assignments? So staff need to be given autonomy to use their discretion with this. Some of the work that we're doing right now is around exploring and deepening the student role. So, for example, looking at roles with student body groups, on and off campus social activities, specifically too around Brodie's interest in his particular genre of music, and attending live music events, finding his tribe. I found it really helpful for me to think of valued role development as a lifelong practice that we're all undertaking. It's under constant change and it's an evolving process. It's not something you're going to just get there and that's it, ticked all those boxes. And finally, something that I've gleaned from the wisdom of Janet Cleese. And we try to look at what's good. What's working well? or what's working really well for others typically. And then we're asking, how could this be better? And then really dream. What would be absolutely awesome? And take a step toward that. I wish you all the very best in your journey of creating or supporting someone creating a better life. And thank you very much for your time.